some kind of a lurk, and who other than Cadian to strike them down!
After coming second at IEM Katowice and IEM Rio, then making semis at the Major and IEM Dallas, Heroic have finally won a title in 2023. But what does winning the Blast Premier Spring Final really prove? Out of the 8 teams at the event, 6 are Blast partner teams. These are guaranteed slots. The way it works is first you have a group stage event with all the partner teams present. The top 6 from here make it straight into the final event. Everyone else goes to either the Europe or America Showdown event. Here there are a couple slots for teams from actual qualifiers, so we can rejoice that for the whole EU region there is a single slot available for a non-partner team to make it through.
Qualified through the first qualifier that qualifies you to the qualifier that qualifies you to the partner team's relegation qualifier that qualifies you to the spring finals.
We played 21 maps to even get into Blast.
It is interesting how the moment these partner teams were against the qualified teams, they didn't perform. I'm not saying that if Heroic wasn't a partner team, they would have necessarily failed to qualify for the event, but they very well could have, if they're losing in important games against teams like Gamer Legion and MOUZ. Right now the Tier 1 calendar is exclusively ESL and Blast events, where the vast majority of teams are partners.
Until they have the best teams there, the trophies from those tournaments are just not going to be respected the same way, because it's not as hard tournaments to win.
For Blast events, it's almost impossible for non-partner teams to get in, but ESL is also really shady in the way they do their invites. They say that 6 of the teams are partner teams, 4 are based on ESL World Rankings, and the last invite slot is for the local hero. What they don't tell you is that conveniently enough, these last 5 are also mostly partner teams. It's as if they're using any excuse they can get to label them differently so they can have more partner teams at the event. Furia is a partner team, Heroic is a partner team, FaZe is a partner team, MOUZ is a partner team. For some reason on HLTV it says ENCE were invited, they are a partner team. Partner teams are guaranteed slots regardless of their rankings, while non-partner teams are often ignored, even if they have higher rankings.
It obviously feels good we are here at the Blast tournament, taking out 3 Blast partner teams, and I hope that they will obviously consider changing their format for 2024, because I think that a lot of teams are showing that we need to be a part of the circuit.
With the current system, you're already starting to see teams getting complacent with the amount of security these semi-franchise leagues provide. During the Blast Paris Major, Valve met with executives from both ESL and Blast, expressing concerns about this, and demanded changes to the partnered leagues if they wanted to be issued tournament licenses for Counter-Strike 2. Valve is pushing for a more open slot allocation system that allows for smaller teams to participate even in invite-heavy tournaments.
Going back to the first attempt at what was, called an exclusivity league, the community seemed to resoundingly reject it. I feel that ever since then, ESL have been looking for a way to have essentially the same thing, and they've just constantly repackaged it. It's worth pointing out that the original plans that you guys had was that you cannot play in any other league if you commit to the ESL Pro League. Traditionally, it's an anathema to the CS community. We have the open tournament system, people go on invites, people come through qualifiers. That's how it's always been, and that's what fans are used to, and I would say they prefer.
There's this value of exclusivity when you want to build a sustainable business. What we did is we were upfront about this to Valve and to everyone else. We said we think, and the teams have signaled us that this is what they want to do. But then on the league side, B-side, Blast, everyone at that time had planned to say, this is the only league you play in. We said, we think this is where it's going. We think, might be worth trying, and here's our plans. And then after they'd heard this from a few parties, they decided to put out that blog.
Valve may go quiet for a while, but once they decide on something, they very rarely back down. The beauty of Counter-Strike is that literally anyone can compete at the highest level, provided they are good enough, and Valve intends to keep it that way. But there is a whole other side to this story. It's not like ESL and Blast necessarily want there to be less competitive integrity at their events. Rather, the problem is monetization in esports. You need some sort of a revenue model for tournament organizers and team orgs.
What we have right now was to a large extent initialized by the teams. I think as a team right now, you don't have a lot of equity in CSGO. You have your brand, and that's sometimes large and really important. If we look at FaZe viewership, no matter what players they have, it's significantly better than viewership for any other team, and that comes from their brand. Teams don't have a lot of equity beyond that. If their lineup is gone, their entire stake and position in the scene might be gone. Cloud9 is a good example, right? Winning the major, then having lineups that don't do well, and all of a sudden they drop from everything. The teams are looking for something like that.
If you're in one of those partnered leagues, you do get a nice check at the end of it. You know, you get to share the sponsors, but ultimately you would need to do that for 5 or 6 years to pay back the buy-in.
We saw the EPL listing, and how they say that the 3 teams enter for 21 million. Who has that money?
I could sort of sympathize if Valve demanded teams to essentially cut or heavily nerf their only sustainable revenue model, but Valve already solved the revenue problem a long time ago with stickers. In 2022, ENCE made nearly $1 million in profit, citing sticker money as a large part of why it had been their best year yet. As opposed to other tier 1 orgs, ENCE does not rely on outside investment. They don't hire unnecessary staff with fake sounding titles such as Director of Performance. They don't go for the most expensive best players. Instead, they bring up new talent with the option of selling them to other orgs later down the line. Functionally, they're a tier 2 org. If tier 1 orgs stopped relying on investment, cut player salaries down by a lot, and overall just function more like a tier 2 org, they would at least have a chance at becoming a sustainable business.
In my dream world, we wouldn't need massive organizations like a CLG, a TSM. We don't need
The
those
big franchise organizations.
We don't need those organizations because they don't know how to make money. It's evident by the fact that they go under. I'm not looking to monetize these teams year round. It's a competitive pursuit. If you win, you make money. If you lose, you don't make money. If you make it to a major, everybody makes sticker money.
On the TO side, they've got some valid concerns about sustainability.
If we're looking at how monetization works, say selling to big sponsors or selling to big media rights partners, if you want a sport to do well like football does, then it needs to be a seller's market. It needs to be one party selling and lots of parties interested in buying. You have something that all media rights partners want to broadcast, so you ask them to put in a bid and then you select the highest at some point. That's how it monetizes. That money goes to teams and everyone and the league, so you can somehow finance the business. Now, if you have a buyer's market, it's the other way around. And I think it's a little bit what we had in CS in the past. On the platform sides, how many are actually viable? We've had Pro League on Twitch. It worked well. We've had Pro League on YouTube. It also worked fairly well. We have Pro League on Facebook. It bombs. So at that point, you lose your power as someone who's selling media rights when you know that you can't actually sell to all platforms. With a Pro League product, if we don't have the eyeballs, we're losing relevance, we're losing interest from sponsors, so it's all interconnected. The value of a league was always in it has a few weeks of content that ideally isn't interrupted by anything else. You can sell to someone, this is 4 or 5 weeks of CS, and in those 4 or 5 weeks, you can only get it here. If there's multiple leagues competing, and there's actually only a few media rights partners that are relevant, then they can turn it around, right? They will select whoever gives them the best offer, because ultimately they might not care much about which one it is, as long as they get some CS content. From our side, we've always been pragmatic about it. Here, really, it isn't about us trying to force teams into attending our events, but rather us together with the teams, where we said, this is really the amount of events that we need you at to be able to justify giving you this amount of money back, at least today, and then hopefully build to something where in the future it gets to a stable state, both for teams and for everyone else.
But we might just have to accept that as a scene, we're not ready to have most of the year filled with high production tier 1 Counter-Strike. PGL is managing to be profitable just fine without blood money or doing a franchise league. Really, most of the problems in esports can be solved today by just cutting spending. And it looks like this is kind of what is starting to happen with all of the layoffs recently. Even though for team orgs, they could probably hold on to all of these people if they just cut down on the player salaries. There's no doubt these orgs have become so bloated over the years that many of the people being let go didn't contribute too much, all things considered. But you shouldn't blame the people for taking the opportunities in front of them either. The industry should have never gotten to a place where there's this illusion that these jobs generate actual value, or that players generate so much value they justify being paid a comically large amount of salary.
Do I think that it's great for lots of people who love Counter-Strike to be able to make an income off of it? Yes. I don't think players need to get paid $50,000 a month. We scaled past where we needed to be.
Part of it was my team's fault.
Considering that it impacts actual people whose livelihoods are at stake, the decision between going large with outside investment and staying humble but sustainable isn't easy. But from Valve's point of view, it looks like the decision has been made, and with that, the release of Counter-Strike 2 is shaping up to be a really exciting prospect for the esport.